We are live. Welcome, everyone. I'm super excited to be here with you. And we're going to get going here on really how to grow on YouTube and what it takes to actually build an audience and really grow to really make a difference in the world. And I'll be joined by a couple guests here in a few minutes. And I want to kind of tell you the format of the live stream. What we're going to do is I'm going to just do a little bit of an intro, really get into it. We're going to bring some guests on that have really crushed it on YouTube. I've really just loved seeing them succeed. And then ultimately at the very end, I'm going to bring you on. I'm going to bring 3 or 4 or 5 of you on to actually ask your questions. We'll have like a Q&A at the very end. It's something that I really enjoy doing. Now, let me just kind of share with you some thoughts on growth and literally looking at the impact that you can have in the world when it comes to YouTube. That really comes down to mindset. The first thing that I look at is really understanding that a lot of people look at, well, what's going on? Why am I not growing? What's going to happen here? And they're not looking at the small little details of the things that you actually need to do to actually grow a specific audience on YouTube. And I can tell you it's with consistency with the content that actually connects the creator. And I'm really excited for the guests today because they've been very consistent in so many different areas. And I can't wait to interview them and to discuss with them the details of their journey on YouTube of going from 0 subscribers to 1 million subscribers. And I can tell you, it all comes down to the end of the day about people and connecting with people through your value. Okay. And if you're not providing value on YouTube, if you're not bringing a unique value proposition, people will not watch more than one video. They might not even watch more than 10 seconds of your video. So you have to be able to really bring it into an area where you're consistently bringing value and it's speaking to them very effectively when it comes to the things that they want to learn about, they want to be entertained about, and so on. And so ultimately on YouTube, it's a journey. And I've worked with so many different channels one-on-one. I've worked with so many different channels just owning it. And then I also mentor different channels that help them along the journey. And it all comes back down to understanding who you're actually making content for and why. Why are they going to find value in that content? And I think once you understand the demographics, the psychographics, what they do online, what they do offline, and then 2, the purpose of why they're coming onto YouTube, especially watching your type of content, it gives you the ability to start creating content very consistently that speaks to an individual, that it's able to connect. And what I really do love is all of us have our passions, and all of us have what we want to create content into. And what we need to do is realize how our content actually speaks to an individual. So this is what we want to do. Like I said, this is going to be an interview, and then we're going to bring some of you on for Q&A that you can ask your questions. Go ahead and tweet this out, share this video, make sure that we can get more people watching. And 2, I'm going to be looking on Twitter quite a bit and kind of gathering some things. So if you want to be able to be on the live stream, make sure you put it on there, and that will be on the tail end of the live stream. Okay. So here we go. I'd like to introduce you to someone that I met several years ago. And we all have YouTube channels, and he had a very unique YouTube channel. And he was consistently putting out content. And I think the first time I met him, I'll have to ask him, but I think the first time I met him was at Vid Summit, I believe. But I remember the first time I watched his content, and I thought, this is different than what most people would do in his genre. And it was a good different. It was a unique different. And I could see that there was just only a few things that he needed to really start to succeed. Now, he was already growing at that time. And I'd like to welcome on the stream my good friend, Dr. Sten Ekberg. How you doing, Dr. Sten?
Hey, Daryl. I'm doing fantastic. And you?
I'm doing great. I had a little bit of a late start, and so I appreciate you being patient with me to get onto this live stream.
Absolutely.
So why don't you share with everyone, what your channel is and what you've been doing over the course, like how you got started, all that fun stuff.
All right. So I'm a chiropractor, and rather than just looking at the bones like a lot of chiropractors do, I was more interested in like the bigger picture, how the brain, how the nervous system, how every part of the body works together. And that was always my passion through school, is to figure that out. And then I realized that my next biggest passion was to explain it to other people, because I realized that the majority of suffering that we have is because people don't understand these basic things about how the body works. And the way I got started on YouTube was, at first I just did seminars in my office, and I would record a few of those seminars and throw them up on YouTube. And we did about 20 or so seminars, and this was back in 2010. And then the channel, we got about 100 subscribers or so. And then the channel kind of sat there for the next 7 or 8 years. And then finally, my other half, Pam, which is my true secret to success here, pushed me, or we realized that there was some potential to this YouTube thing, that you could actually make a business out of it. So starting September of 2017, we started publishing consistently, and we put out 2 videos a week, which we kept up for the next couple of years, and then we dropped down a little bit.
Yeah. Now I want to kind of start there. I can't remember how many subscribers you had or the journey that you were on when we met. And was I mistaken? Did we meet at Vid Summit? I think it was like Vid Summit. I can't even remember. Was it 2018?
Yes.
Or was it 2018?
Yeah. So when we started in the fall of 17 to put out consistent content, and at that time I think we had 180 subscribers, and then we grew. We actually broke 3,000 on Vid Summit.
Oh yeah.
We had the counter, and we were counting down with the phone while we were in session there, and we broke 3,000. There were a couple of people next to us who subscribed to push us over.
They're at Vid Summit. They're like, hey, all right, yeah, we'll push you over. We'll get you going. Okay, yeah. So I want to rewind, because I do believe that what you and Pam thought about YouTube at that time, back when we first met, is different than you view YouTube now. And I've seen a really big shift in your content, which has been great. But would you kind of explain what you thought YouTube was back then, and maybe some of the things that you thought were important that weren't necessarily didn't have as much relevance, I guess, as what you now know, having 1 million subscribers? Well, I guess it's like, let's be correct, 1.17 million subscribers. It's just not 1 million, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's kind of discuss that.
So we just didn't understand what was important. We went. Pam was super excited. She watched literally nonstop everything that moved on YouTube to try to learn, and we went in way too many directions, and we didn't understand that YouTube had an algorithm that was intelligent, that had a purpose. And it was through a lot of your teachings that we started understanding that the YouTube has one interest, and that is to provide the right video for the right viewer. And in order for them to do that, you have to figure out who that viewer is, and you have to be consistent, so that if you put out a video and you attract the viewer, then you have to put out something else that that viewer is going to want. And if you're all over the place, then YouTube doesn't know who to present your content to. And that's really the secret. Like you said, you have to provide something of value, and then you have to be consistent so YouTube knows who to put it in front of.
Yeah, and I want to kind of further emphasize this a little bit, because I think at the end of the day, they think, oh, the secret sauce is some key word or something that's going to hype this up. And that is like literally ridiculous to think like that. And I don't want to just kind of, pee on people's parades, but the reality is it's about people. Now, one thing that I noticed about this, let me just go ahead and pull up your stuff. Like most channels that do this type of content, like the 10 worst foods doctors tell you to eat. Let's just use this one for example. Most of them are like 3 to 4 minutes long. Yours is 22 minutes long. And I want to really say this because I remember very vividly seeing your analytics, and I saw that you had some viewers that loved your content, that they would watch all the way to the end. They weren't dropping off right at the very beginning. And I knew that you prided yourself in that, like, yeah, my people love me, and they're staying on to the end. And, they might watch 22 minutes or 33 minutes or whatever of the content. And I remember very specifically saying that in this genre, most people can't even tolerate a 5-minute video. Or a 10-minute video. And so we looked at your format, and this is when we were starting to work together and so on and so forth, but looked at your format and it was solid. But what you would do every once in a while would stop speaking to the one that would want to watch 33 minutes, and you try to go talk to somebody else. And it was like, okay, yeah, we get it. But it's like, at the end of the day, the 33-minute person that wanted to watch that whole video wanted to watch more and more and more and more. And the videos that I really like about this is how you've done it. And I think this is where a lot of people think, oh, it needs to have quick cuts. It needs to have all this just jazzed up. And yet you're here, like literally giving a presentation. I mean, you're basically giving a presentation. You have you have some great, like the content's good from my perspective. You have some things that are happening in the background, but you're really pulling in your thoughts. And this is what you're building your content on. And I want to really, for everyone that's watching this, really explain what he thought his audience wanted 2.5 years ago. And what him and Pam know who his audience is today. It isn't necessarily, it hasn't changed, but they better understand what they want. And they better understand exactly what happens in their day-to-day, where they weren't even thinking about it. They were thinking, oh, the viewer would like this. And would you just take a minute, because I know out of all my students that I mentor, that you guys like really try to hound in on your avatar and really try to understand what their makeup is. But would you mind just kind of talking about that and that shift moment of when you're like, oh, okay, it's more than just the viewer of watching it, but it's more about their life.
Yeah, we had an interesting transition. So we'd been putting out videos consistently for almost 1.5 years in January 2019. And Pam had done some wonderful things, and she had made some interesting mistakes when we figured that, hey, wherever you can get the eyeball is a good thing, which is the opposite of the truth. So we knew of PewDiePie, who was Swedish, and he had so many million subscribers, and he made a meatball video. So Pam pushed and said, it's like, you have to. I said, I don't want to make meatball videos. And she said, you got to do a meatball video so we can get PewDiePie's audience. And we did a meatball video, and the AI, YouTube's intelligence, was more confused than ever. So our audience would be gamers. they would be rappers. They would have no connection whatsoever to our content. And
And
our
my favorite thing is, what would they say when they saw that video? Who is this guy? Like,
yeah,
what? Who is what? And they
yeah,
jump off. You know.
yeah. So our average age, now the shift was in mid-January 2019. Our average age prior to that was teenagers. And we had an average view duration of about 1.5 minutes.
Yep.
And overnight, literally, I'm not kidding, overnight, YouTube figured out who we were. And our average age went from teenager to 55. Our view duration went from 1.5 minutes to 10 minutes overnight. And it was one video that did it, interestingly. And that video never did all that well. It did well compared to what we had done before, but it wasn't like a rock star or anything. But it made YouTube realize who we were, because they could serve out to some people, and it took off. And from that moment on, it's never been the same. But it's just so key. You do not want traffic from people who are not your audience. That's the one thing we learned.
Yeah, and I think when we look at content and we look at people, sometimes we try to super simplify what's actually happening. And there's a lot of people that says, "Oh yeah, YouTube will only serve it out to people that care about you, whatever." But we don't give YouTube the chance to do that. And I think that's the key, because if you would have continued on the meatball path, you wouldn't be here today. I can honestly say we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah.
And I believe that a lot of content creators, they don't necessarily take a step back and analyze, okay, what is my content? You know, who is my audience well enough so that they can adjust? Because all my students that I mentor, they understand my mantra is like plan, execute, analyze, and adjust. That's the secret of success, especially on YouTube. And I remember, I do a lot of consultations, and people get really defensive. Well, I'm doing everything right. I'm doing great titles and great thumbnails, and I'm doing the amazing content. And it's just YouTube's a lottery, or it's like, what, I've already done all this. And I look at their content. I'm like, no, I don't think you're understanding what good content is, because like you're just throwing content out there, but I don't even think who you're creating content for. And so instead of going down the meatball moments of videos, you actually said, no, here's a video that responded really well. And what you did really well is like, oh, I get it now. YouTube is suggesting this one. Let's go ahead and find similar content that YouTube could recommend. And that's where your watch time started to go through the roof. It's just like immediately overnight, your channel started to explode, because it wasn't just 3-minute, 15-second views. It's literally 10-minute average that they'd watch that longer form.
Yeah. And what's interesting is also we had videos prior to that turning point who were really good videos that had a couple of hundred views that never did anything because YouTube didn't know who to serve them to. But after they figured out who we were, those videos have become has millions of views. So from hundreds of views to millions of views. Did we lose him? Are we on?
No, we're on. We're on.
Okay.
I'm just pulling up your screen there.
All right.
But I think at the end of the day, it's that transition. And you've probably, I know that you're in the group that's been the longest of my students in really understanding the system of there. Even though that you're taught, on YouTube, a lot of the things that you were learning, because I know that you're a consumer, you're like learning from everywhere. How long did it take you, like once you understand the approach that I was teaching you to look at YouTube? Because I know it's a little bit different than what's out there. And I says, okay, this is how we look at things, and this is how we gauge our action that we take, because it's based off of what's actually happening on your channel, and then also what's happening on your individual videos, and then who and where, you know, the whole detail from that. But how long did it take you to actually wrap your head around that? Because I know coming into it, it was like you're trying to do all this stuff, and you're like putting out great content, and it just, some of it would hit and some of it wouldn't hit. But when did you get an understanding first, and then second, when did you find your jam?
Yeah, I would say that I don't think there's a point in time. I think it's continuous, and it took several months, many months, until it starts to dawn on you. But I still don't have it. I'm still feeling like, hey, you know, I gotta figure this out. And what's interesting in that regard, you and I are very, very different, because we know you're teaching people YouTube, I teach people health, but it's not about giving them a list of things to do, because then they're gonna wonder, well, why is this list more correct than this other list that this guy talks about? Right. But if you can get them, it's not about giving them the list, it's about helping them understand why the list looks the way it does. And now they see the value, and now they understand why your list is different. And that's the only way that people can really walk away with value. And that's why my videos are 20 minutes, because the value comes in how it changes you. It's not about the information is useless until you truly sort of understand what you can read between the lines.
Kate, my favorite thing that you said is that you haven't figured it out yet. And I want everyone in the comments right now to realize that it's an ongoing, I don't want to use battle, but it's an ongoing journey of discovering. Because like the moment that he says, I got it all figured out, he's going to coast. And I teach my students, is like, no, we're always analyzing and adjusting. We're always analyzing and adjusting, because if you think that you have the cracked code, you'll become complacent, and complacency is what leads us down to stagnation, and stagnation leads to lack of motivation and drive. And so for us, it's just like, how can we always improve? And how can we actually look at it through this way? And that's something that I've preached from day one. But my favorite, I would say, analogy, I've never heard anybody say this before, and I really do appreciate your perspective, is, okay, you have the listicle things. Here's the things that you need to do. Like, we all know you have to make an amazing thumbnail. We all know you have to make a clickable title, right? We all know the hook needs to pull you in. We all know we need average good view duration, right? We all know that. Okay. What we don't understand is why, and why is that important for a specific segmented market? And I think too, it's like what works for some doesn't work for all. And I think you guys know this best, because you're constantly testing things. You're constantly A/B testing. You're constantly improving based off of the data. And if there's ever, I would say, a student that I'm proud of, it's you and Pam, because you're constantly never being satisfied, and you're always analyzing and adjusting. And no matter what the video is, you're like, yeah, we could tweak this, we could do here, you know. And whether it's like to improve new content coming out, or it's refreshing old content to have it perform better. And that, I think that right there is key. And I think that right there is what everyone in the Jumpstarter, I have a community of students that they're starting to understand. But I think that's the big point of that. You can't ever be satisfied. And yes, you can read everything that you can possibly read about YouTube on YouTube and succeed. I truly do believe this. But how we analyze it and how we deep dive into it, that's where it's an individual thing. Because when you look at a specific channel, I like to really try to break down the intentions of the viewer more than anything else, of why they're coming on, why they're doing it. But it's also the way that they consume YouTube and getting into their head a little bit, because then you can anticipate the content in the sense that you know what's going to connect. Have you and Pam ever experienced where you thought, hey, this is going to be the most banger video ever. I'm going to put this out. All my viewers going to love it because it's exactly what they need. And then it bombs.
Absolutely.
You want to kind of talk into that?
Well, it's like you know it's a big topic, and I'm passionate about it, and we know that there's like one example is anxiety, depression. It's huge topics. Tens, hundreds of millions of people are suffering, and it's one of my passions because I get to incorporate some brain and nervous system and those mechanisms into it. But it wasn't a great match for our audience. And some of the best videos I've done, and they bombed. So but you always have to push the envelope a little bit also and experiment to see where you can take your audience. Because you're, like you said, once you're stagnant, once you think you got it, then you're coasting, and you have to keep expanding. So my goal is I know what my audience is looking for now, which is primarily weight loss and diabetes and things like that. But the core audience, the ones who watch everything several times, they've gone beyond that, and they understand that it's not about the weight, it's about total holistic health. And that's where I want to take the channel. But the broader audience isn't quite ready for that, so you have to sort of do it.
Well, let's address it, because I think you already are doing that. Because if they wanted a quick answer for quick weight loss on X, Y, or Z, they're going to grab that content and they're going to consume.
Yeah.
But what you're able to do is give them more of a complete presentation of the why. Why is this, like, why is apple cider vinegar important for health and weight loss, right? And you start breaking down the content. So in the 23 minutes, almost 24 minutes, you're able to also bring in the holistic side of things. And you do this, this every single time. And they're like, oh, this is really great. He's giving a complete breakdown of things that I didn't even need to know, that I knew I needed to know. He's giving me stuff that I should have known, but I didn't know. And so that's why your retention is longer, is because you're not just doing a quick, here's the 5 ways, and then you're moving on to the next video, but you're giving it depth. And also you're giving it the information of the holistic health. You know, and I wouldn't say peppered in, because you lay it on pretty thick. When you actually watch your videos, if you're looking at it through that lens, you're pretty in depth on it. And so the only thing that though is, it's like, what is that carrot that pulls them in to help them understand? And that if you guys are not familiar with my book, you can find that in the description below. But there's a term that we use as buckets. It's like, once you understand, they come in for a specific content, you know, and you pull them in, you can still bring them a lot more value within that video, within that bucket, that you can actually get them, so that that you're satisfying them. Now, one of the key things though too, and this is what I want everyone to understand, is the viewer is what I really care about. And what I care about is that they're watching more than one video. And you've had one of the highest that I've seen is the people that come in and they watch video after video after video, back to back. And I know that there was a time that you're like, hey, they're really excited about this and they're really consuming it this way. But it wasn't until you made some adjustments on the content, and I was able to see it on, you know, just throughout working with you, and seeing you make some really good decisions, that that number came down. But the reason why it came down is because the audience size went out further. You were able to gather more. I know in the beginning that was your number. Like, if there's ever a number, it was that number, and your average view duration is the one that you cared about the most. And yet that was starting to shrink because your audience size started to go bigger. Do you want to talk into that a little bit of, you know, how you reacted when you started to see that number come down a little bit, and then two, you know, the shifts on the channel when that happened?
Well, it's like all the stats, you have to keep in mind how wide the spread is. So your view duration, your click-through percentage, they're all going to come down as YouTube is willing to present your content to a wider audience. So I don't know that that shocked me so much, but what we're trying to do is,
well, I just know that it was like you were just that. I don't want to use hellbent, but you were hellbent on this is my this is my data. This is what we look at. And I'm like, like, okay, that's good. That's a piece, but that's not the whole piece. But you're just so here it is. And I think as content creators, we're looking at, oh, you know, my click-through rate, and they're literally trying to judge it off of somebody else's click-through rate. Like there's videos that Mr. Beast has, and I'll bring him in as an example. If you don't know who Mr. Beast, just look him up. But he'll have a 3% click-through rate, and you're like, well, I have a 20% click-through rate. Well, he has billions of impressions on that 3%. So out of those 3% of the billions, that's where he's getting the 50 million. So the wider it goes out, the lower your numbers go. That's just the way it is. But it works where within your core group of viewers, it's going to be extremely high. Like when you see his, it's like 75% that see his thumbnail will click on it, right? And then the more it goes out, the lower that it goes. And I think too, it's like really understanding the why, you know. And I think as creators, we just get so set on looking at the data that YouTube provides for us that we don't drill into it deeper to have a deeper understanding. We just say, oh no, I'm looking at the video performance funnel and this triangle thing, in analytics, and it says, here's my recommendation from YouTube, and then here's my click-through rate, and so on. But they don't really look at, well, that's not necessarily correct. And I love YouTube, and they do a great job for average people looking at that content. But that's the most deceptive, one of the most deceptive data that we can look at in analytics, because it's not telling the complete picture. When you drill down deeper and look at traffic, you might see that your click-through rate is like triple the amount of what it's saying. And that's where a lot of the audience is coming from. It could be browse feature or suggestion or whatever. And that's something that I want all content creators, when they're on YouTube, is to look at. Don't look at your favorite stat and glorify in that. If you're gonna just be looking at it as like how many people click on it and how many people get to the end of the video is a great first start. But I would drill down a little bit deeper on traffic source, because that's where I want to transition next. If you go into analytics and you look at your traffic sources, this type of channel, usually 99% of the time, the number one traffic source would be search. That's basically people searching out these key terms, and there's a lot of traffic for that. And I know that there's another one is when you have a really, really super engaged audience, it will come through a browse feature, which is homepage and subscription feed, right? And you'll have that as the majority. But then there's channels that have the number one traffic source is suggestion. And I want to talk about this because this is something that a lot of people like, well, no, I want more people like right out of the gate when I release a video just to watch my videos. But your content seems to always keep on giving. And, it's like when you put a video out, it doesn't mean that you're going to get all your views in 48 hours. It just keeps on rolling and it keeps on moving and it keeps on building and it keeps on suggesting with each other. How sensitive are you to what's happening on the video, of where the traffic's coming from, and why is it important on deciding the type of video that you're going to create, for the future?
We're very sensitive. We look very closely at that. And before YouTube figured us out, it's like you said, it was mostly search. But then what we've learned mostly through your coaching is that you don't title your video for search, you title it for people. Because ultimately, once YouTube knows who you are, then you need to make that title attractive and clickable and interesting to people. So we look very closely, and I would say 90 on a good video right now, we get 95% of the views from YouTube recommendation, even within a few days. And the vast majority.
No, wait. Say
Yeah.
that one more time. Say that one more time.
Okay.
Say that again.
On a video that does well, we get 95% of all our views from recommendation, meaning browse and suggested.
So let's stop right there. Every day on YouTube, 75% of all views that happen when YouTube recommends your content. When you have a really good video, in the first few days, it's being recommended by 95% of all your views are coming from that. Okay, that right there is impressive, because it's telling, like, from my perspective, it's saying the AI is like, hey, I already know who the audience is going to love this. And for those that don't know, what YouTube does is they do these small little micro tests to see if it performs well. So a micro test is basically where they show your thumbnail and your title to a group of people. Okay, whether it's on the homepage, whether it's in the subscription feed, whether it's through a suggestion. And that's the videos that just the next up, and everything that's on the side or below the video if you're on mobile. And what they do is they say, okay, how many times do we actually show it and how many times people click on it is key. And what they do is, if it reaches a parameter, they're like, well, let's test it further to see where it stops, and it goes further and further and further. And it usually within a 24-hour window, it will really start ramping up. Now, here's the difference. You might have that ramp up on homepage where it goes really, really big. And then around the 24 or 48 hour mark, you'll start seeing suggestions swell up. But your channel, this is what I want everybody to understand, does both at the same time. And I think that is the key behind this, is yours is doing both at the same time, because YouTube already knows that your audience performs really well when they're watching a video that doesn't, and I want you, and this might make sense for why this happens, but for someone that wants to learn a topic that they want to drill in deeper, they want to go down the rabbit hole, but they don't want a 3 to 5 minute video. They want something that will give them some substance. And so when you send out a video, YouTube's going, okay, we already know from this sample size that it's going to work. And that's why you get a ton of views coming in from that beginning, and you have a higher than normal, and I do believe this, higher than normal amount of suggestion, because suggested videos in the first 48 hours because of that. And then two, if YouTube says, oh, this is working out higher than the average or higher than their baseline that they normally do, guess what naturally happens? It goes out to more people and more people and more people. And that's where those numbers will start to come down, but your views and your reach will go out. Did you ever have just a video just like way overperform right out of the gate, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is just going to take off, go to the moon, and go from there? Did you ever have a video like that when you released it?
We've really only just had one like that, which broke every record and ran for a week, and then it's not completely dead, but it's like snail speed.
Yeah.
That was when to take apple cider vinegar, when to drink apple cider vinegar. And
I think it has like what 1.6 million views or something like that on that one.
No, that's another apple cider.
Okay.
The one we just recently did on meat.
Yeah, but that one's still going. Yeah. We recently had our ultimate record out of the gate, but that one's still doing pretty well. I mean, it's slowed down, but it's not far from dead.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, you've had the opposite thing happen too, where it didn't perform out of the gate.
Yes.
But then later on, it just started to kick up. You want to talk about that?
And that is where what you're talking about in the book, that's where buckets come in. That when you figure out how to group things together to appeal to a similar audience, It may take a little bit before some of those videos take off, but then they tend to, or can, take off altogether. And we had a bucket of signs and symptoms where our #1 video right now was 10 signs of liver toxicity. It's our best on views. It's our best money earner. And it was below average for a long, long time. But then finally they found the audience for it, and it hasn't stopped.
Yeah, and what I love about this, and this is like really, really cool, is when we look at content, we get very, very protective of that first 48 hours. And I think content creator says, oh, this is a bust, or this is an amazing video based off the first 48 hours of a video release. And I think there's a lot of emotional, mental, connection with our content. Oh, we're not going to grow or whatever. I'm never one to say, hey, it was a bomb, it was a stinker yet. I always like to look at what's happening, and there's patterns. And I know that you guys had videos that after 7 days it took off, after 21 days it took off, after 120 days it took off. But when it did, and it just didn't slow down after that. It was just like it took off, it came back down to a baseline, and it was just continual traffic coming into it. And I think the key to this is taking a step back and realizing, what type of video that you're creating, who you're creating it for, what type of traffic source that it's going to be most likely to show up in, and what does that look like. So the one that took off immediately for the first 7 days, I can guarantee you the main traffic source that was getting that was browse feature. And you can go back and look in your data. And the reason why is like, that's the fastest way to ever grow on YouTube is when you get on the homepage, but it's a broad homepage and you keep on going big, big, big. The worst thing that can happen though is if you don't have a good suggestion strategy on that content, then it's just going to die. I mean, it will literally die. It'll go and do its thing and then die, and you have to release another video. And the key to that, this is a dilemma that a lot of vloggers face when you share. I'm sharing my life because, hey, this is the only time that I'm going to do it. So they have a really, really, front end view relationship, and then just a really, really low end suggestion. And so generally that happens. But and I would be curious too. I know that wasn't your only video that you created with apple cider vinegar. And if that ever started to see some traction afterwards, that'd be an interesting thing to track, because I know that you've had several videos since then, but like right out of the gate, you're like, oh my gosh, this is going bananas. It's going to take off. And yet it only just did its thing in the first 7 days. And I think that right there is where I want all content creators, I don't care if you're my student or not, but I want you to accept it for what it is, and then learn from it. Learn from what just happened, and either you want to replicate it, or you're like, okay, I learned that when this happens here, and just don't be so invested into it that you feel that it's a failure, because it's not. It's not a failure. It's just basically an understanding of what's actually happening. And I think this is where a lot of creators come in with the blame game, and they start blaming YouTube because they're throttling them or whatever. They're keeping them down, or the robots are like keeping them whatever. And it's just like, no, it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the dynamic and the breakdown of what's actually happening on your video. And if we learn from it, we can have clear expectations either to match or to go a little bit above of what just happened, if we can create the same type of environment for a new video. And then two, we can look at it and start analyzing the video in a deeper way, where we can say, oh, they didn't really respond to this. Well, what can we do? Maybe we need to bring in some clips and some things that could kind of enhance with what I'm saying to keep better attention here. Or, oh, they really like this. Let's do more of that next time. And that's that adjustment phase that comes into when you're releasing the content.
Yeah.
So,
and it's interesting what you said, that people often think that whatever happens in the first 48 hours is going to determine everything. But I also feel a responsibility with, because the stuff I'm putting out changes lives. So there's a certain responsibility to have it be of a quality that will stand the test of time. So that's also why I put so much effort and time and emphasis into my videos, because I do want them to hold up, and I want them to be part of a library that will be there forever.
Yeah.
And that's also where I think when and I guess not every, like you said, vloggers can't necessarily do that, but
I'll disagree. I think they can.
Yeah.
They just need to adjust their strategy.
Yeah.
And I have vloggers that do it now, just based off of that it can't be a single day event, because then it's just like, oh, I consumed it, I can move on. But if it was an experience, then absolutely it could be evergreen. Absolutely, it could be consumed, more than just that 48 hours to a week.
Yeah, and if you do that, I think the videos, you can have more of those surprise moments where videos take off after many months or even years.
Yep.
I have a question on that note, and you might enlighten people. Like, there's probably a lot of variables we don't understand as to why YouTube recommends something. Like, we had a video recently on kidneys that was it didn't do very well. I think it was below average, and then it just took off, and then it just crushed it. It shot like a rocket up, and now I think it has over 1.5 million views. But when you looked at the stats, they were pretty bad.
Yeah.
And almost all of the views were from browse.
Yep.
And the click-through and the view duration was horrible. Like, we got 8 minutes view duration on suggested and 4 minutes on browse, and they kept serving it out on browse. So you have any?
Yeah, I think the key is realizing that the AI, so this is the brain that pretty much runs all of YouTube, sees patterns that we don't see. Okay. And they see things that we don't necessarily see. There's too many data points out there, but it's able to see the small, minute patterns. And there could be some things that are happening on trending things that are relevant to what people are generally interested in right now. It could be, hey, let's just use the kidney video, for example. There's some reason why people are watching kidney content a little bit more, because they already know what's being said, because they know the title. They actually are captioning and having the feedback of that data of what's being said. And then also they're seeing the visual representation in the thumbnail and also in each video frame. And they're taking all that data and they're seeing, oh, here's some content from there. There's an interest. And so what usually happens, and if you look at a shorter window, and we're talking just hours of when that starts to take off, when you ever, and this is like an advanced hyper tip. If anyone wants an advanced hyper tip, this is it. But if you have a video that starts to take off, what I do is go right to the video, and you can see in real time where that traffic's coming from. And some of it might be from suggestions. So if it's from suggestion, there's a video now that gets a ton of views that's now recommending your video in the next up. You have a really good position where it's at. And it could either be on your channel or someone else's channel. But if it's coming from browse feature, 100% it's the homepage. And if it's the homepage, that basically says, the AI says, this is the perfect video to add all your videos for people to see right now, to go out to this segmented market. And that's what happened, is they went out to browse feature and it just went bananas, because YouTube's able to see all these little data points that's actually happening, and really consuming it in a way that when they got to your video, it was a high click-through, and your average was higher than the normal. When that happens, it goes out to a bigger size and a bigger size, and before you know it, you got millions of views on it, based off of the response. And so this can happen anytime. I actually have a good friend of mine that posted videos 7 years ago on YouTube, 7 years ago. and one of the videos took off, and he went from a channel that had just a few subscribers, views, to I think he's getting close to 100,000 subscribers now, based on some older content that just kicked off. And they were watching more than one video, and it just really started to engage. He says, "What do I do?" I'm like, "Just start posting content." They want some, so just literally do this. And so he's been experimenting with that and going from there. But you just don't know when it's going to hit based off of all the parameters that YouTube's looking at. And I'm telling you, there's no human out there that can analyze it like an AI. That's why an AI is making those decisions instead of going off of other metrics that just don't work because they can be falsified.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something?
No. Thank you for that. It's good. So
could we talk about just kind of your approach of never being satisfied and never feeling like you have it figured out? I think you have what you're doing, your plan figured out. Would you agree with that? Just like, okay, we know the direction that we're going. But I know that you're not arrogant to say, "Oh, we know everything about YouTube. We got to go play button. This is the way it works," and all this other stuff. Could you kind of talk into individuality of content? You've been able to be a part of my program, Channel Jumpstart, and see all these different channels that just take off by just understanding a little bit more about the who and what value you're going to bring to them. Could you just talk about the similarities and then also the contrasting things that you see as well? Just being a YouTuber out there and then people doing, maybe gaming or something and using the system.
Well, first of all, when you say that never satisfied, I think that's absolutely true. A lot of people know and some don't that I was an athlete, and I competed. I broke the Swedish record in decathlon. I competed in the Olympics in 1992. So it's in my nature to never sort of settle. You always look for the possibility of doing something a little better. And that's where Channel Jumpstart is so valuable, because sometimes I go there and I don't necessarily understand all the details, but you still walk away with a bigger picture. And at some level, you have to become better. You have to become more interesting. You have to hold their attention a little better. You have to connect a little better. And when you look at the videos you did a few years ago, it's pretty scary. and even still now, it's like I do a video and I didn't feel that great about it, and then I see it when I kind of go through and edit or review it, and it's like, wow, this is a lot. It's not great, but it's pretty good. It's like, is that really me? I didn't feel that good doing it, but because you keep doing it, you've done hundreds and hundreds of videos, before long it's like you become a different person. So I'm not exactly sure where you were going with that question. Is that
I think it's the thing for me is that we're all on a journey and a path, and whether it's gaming, whether it's a vlog, whether it's teaching people health benefits, from a holistic way, whether, it's like we can just give every scenario, knitting, for example. There's a thing that there's the similarities that we have, but then two, it's how we approach what we have. And if we're always just satisfied with what we're putting out, and I think there's a lot of people that says, "This is my best video ever." And I'm like, well, that's great. But that's what you said about your last one. And did you learn from these? Because you did make mistakes in it. You're like, makes mistakes? What? I don't make mistakes. Like, who are you to tell me I make mistakes? There's a couple gamers that have just really exploded in our mentoring group. And what I love to see is I think we showed this. Did we show it at the retreat? If we did, you haven't seen it yet. It'll be in Orlando. We do a mastermind, or we did it on a group call. I can't remember, and my mind's kind of blended together. But They saw strategy that I taught on advanced strategy. They're like, oh, this could apply for me. And they both did a similar type of content, and both videos just went way up. And then we had another channel that was like non-gaming related, did a similar type of thing, and it just took off. And it was just more about, oh, here's the idea that humans would respond to this type of thumbnail and this type of content. And here's the idea that it could engage. And I think what was cool about it was it wasn't down genre. It was just like, it just responds well with people. And people are naturally curious because of this idea. And that's what I love to see, is how you might get an idea coming from a gamer or from someone in real estate or someone, you know, that's putting out tech videos that's going to help your channel succeed because it's about people at the end of the day. Right. And I think that was the nature of my
yeah, exactly. That in the beginning, when we start out as creators and we say, I'm going to build a channel, and we look only at people who are similar to us, and we only look at titles and contents and keywords, and we think that that's where it is. But then as we go further and further, it's exactly what you're saying, that it's not about the stuff, it's about you as a person connecting with another person. And who are you becoming in the process? As you get a feel for your audience, then who are you becoming in the process? And then that, like you said, that doesn't have anything to do with genre. And in my case, it's I'm pretty, not pretty, I'm by nature, I'm very introvert. I'll go in a crowd, I'll go stand in a corner.
Okay, let's just stop you right there.
All right.
90% of the biggest influencers that I've worked with, 90%, and I'm not throwing this number out, they're introverts. They're introverts.
Yeah.
They would rather sit in a corner, but when they come on camera, it's in a corner behind a camera.
Yeah.
So
and where I was going with that, though, is that it's a constant evolving of give and take, that you can talk about, oh, you have to understand your audience and you have to speak to your audience. But as your audience gives you feedback, as you sense that you're developing a community, that community changes you. And then it continues to evolve, and you continue to evolve as a person. And I would say I'm a completely different person today, not because of success or views or financial changes, but because of the impact that I feel I'm having, and the connection with that community. And I mean, it's awesome. That's the biggest takeaway of any of this, and it keeps evolving.
Yeah, and I love that too. It's like as new people come in, it evolves. So let me give you context, and this is for everyone that's out there. So you know, Dr. Sten was able to come into a community that I was starting, and it started 2 years ago in this upcoming October. And my philosophy of audience development is analyze and adjust. Like, you're going to see what works, what doesn't work, and you're going to say, okay, where do we put our focus? And then you adjust. But you've been able to see a community be born, because it wasn't a community when you started.
Yeah.
It had the makings of community. It had the tendencies and the pillars of community. And so if you want to understand that, is chapter 18 of my book. But it's just more, it's starting to create that. But it wasn't until the community started to feel like a community that it changed. And then that was the moment that I knew we had something special here, and that could be so much more. And I think YouTubers are the same way. You know, if the transaction's me uploading a video and you're watching a video and there's no community involvement, then basically what you need to expect is a cold, callous transaction. Okay. But if it has heart, if there's you know, a sense of more than the video, then your average view duration is going to go up, because people are willing to endure some of your mistakes just because they feel like they're a part of something bigger when they're watching the video. And whether it's a Mr. Beast video, whether it's whatever, you know, that's the case. And so, like, I have a channel that we started a couple years ago that we just hit over 1 million subscribers, and we have a video coming out on it shortly on this channel. But it was showing the journey. But we started from day one is like, let's build a community, and the content will provide that community. And that's the case study that I show in the book. But if we build a community first, then they'll tell us what type of content they want. And I know that that's a hard process to think, but doing this over the course of my career, it works in the sense of understanding what you need to bring to the table. And when you bring it, then it's just like, oh, now I know what to provide and how we can grow. And, you know, you think getting, 1,000 subscribers in a month is just amazing. But like, we're talking, you can get tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of subscribers a month, if not millions, when there's that extra element that's there where they feel like they're coming into something bigger than just a video.
Yeah. And you had that, again, I'm looking at similarities between us because you have that experience on how to approach things. And I have the same thing in health. And we try to get that message across. And what I want to urge people is, like, even if you don't get it, just keep watching it. Just keep spending time with it. Because it's almost like by osmosis, eventually it means something to you. And that's how I feel about Channel Jumpstart also, that it's not even specific details. Even though, yes, there are plenty of detail, that's not really the biggest takeaway. It's the ability to sense where you need to go next and who you need to become and so forth.
Yeah, love it.
And my biggest reward is when people leave comments and they're not just saying, oh, I lost this much weight or my diabetes reversed, but it's when they say something profound that I realize they watched hundreds of videos and they get it. They start talking about root causes, or no, I'm not going to do this because of that. And like, they got it. They have control of their life as a result. That's the biggest thing.
I love that. And I think too, then it's like, oh, it is making a difference. You know, all these things that I'm really trying to explain based off of this topic is really making the impact. And so it's really fulfilling. I think for me, I think the most satisfying thing is when I feel like I belong to something bigger than just a video. And I think that's always fun. Well, should we take some questions? For those that have questions, we're going to do super chat first, but I also want to bring people on so you can actually have a conversation with Dr. Sten and myself and ask some things too. And the only way to do that is to put on Twitter, say, hey, do it. I'll DM you if I feel like you would be a good fit. But really push the live stream on Twitter. And say that you want to come on to ask your questions. So the first one's actually coming from Roberto Blake, our friend. What do you feel like the single biggest variable in going from 500,000 to 1 million? Thanks to both of you. Were you able to hear that?
Yeah. Single biggest variable. I don't know that it was from 500 to 1 million. I think it's been continuous. After we sort of realized what our audience was and where we were going, there's certain ups and downs, but it's really harder to get to 10,000 or from 1,000 to 10,000 than from 100,000 to 1 million. It really is. It's kind of exponential.
Well, but let's look at that and let's break it down, because you're just starting new. You don't know what you don't know, right? And so once it becomes an old hat, then you're like, oh, okay, I know how to upload a video now, and I know how to title a video, and I know how to make some great content from there. But let's just say the moment that I met you at Vid Summit a couple years ago. Was it 3 years ago or whatever? And now, like, what was the biggest thing for you to see that transition on that?
So I would like to point out also Pam, because there are two secrets to this channel. And one is my passion to get a message out, and the other is Pam's passion to play on YouTube. And I think,
wait, I want to validate that. I've never had a student so curious about how things operate than Pam. Like like people say that they do, but like she's nonstop. She's been nonstop 3 years in my ear of how does this work and why does this do this and what if we tested it this way? And I love that. Like that's what I love about Pam, because I know, like, if there's ever a person that's going to have a question about data, it's going to be her. And it's not that she like, she's really good at what she does, but she's always wanting to understand, and that's what I love about you guys, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that she might be only second to you in the world in terms of being addicted to YouTube. She started with Nick Nimmin and Schmoyer, and she didn't watch some of the videos. She watched everything they have ever put out.
More than once.
More than once.
There we go.
Still watches 4 hours of Nick Nimmin's live stream every time. And she has watched every video out.
No, it's great. It's great content, because I think too, and I will validate this. Like, I do a lot of coaching sessions, some for new ones coming into the group, others for whatever. She's always there. She's on every freaking call, and if you put that in, that's an additional probably 6 to 8 hours a week that she's consuming content. And I think too, people are like, well, you heard it all. But the difference is you never know what you're going to get. You might get a golden nugget here that connects something there. And I think that's what she's looking for sure. So,
yeah. And I was getting to that once you found, you were kind of the third one she hooked onto. And since then, she hasn't missed a single thing you've ever done. So, but yeah, back to that question. The biggest thing that I have tried to do, and it's constantly, even when I'm doing I do everything as a PowerPoint. And even when I'm putting those together, I am imagining what I'm going to say, how I'm going to say it, how people are going to respond. So I'm trying and getting better and better at relating and being relatable. And I think that might be the biggest recent difference or growth is in how I present it, that I feel better. It's like I can look back at it and not be totally embarrassed.
Yeah. And I think you will be embarrassed 2 years in the future when you look back, because you've evolved more than that if you're doing it right. Okay. So great question, Roberto. Here's another one. This is like a
one more thing here. Pam informs me that it's Roberto's birthday today.
Roberto,
so happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Is it really his birthday? Like, I'm the worst friend ever. Why didn't it pop up on my phone, Roberto? Like what I'm putting it in right now. Happy birthday, Roberto. Okay, so this next one, when in the opinion is the best time slot to post content? I'm in South Africa, but most of my views are coming from the United States or Europe. Do you want to take that one, or do you want me to grab that one?
I'll take it, and you can add to it that YouTube gives you the information of when you have natural rises and falls, and you want to post at the beginning of the most momentum. So we have our natural upswing is at 6 in the morning, so that's when we post, and our natural best time is the weekend. So it starts on Friday and it builds through Saturday, Sunday. So we post at 6 in the morning, and then we kind of get some momentum through the weekend based on that.
Yeah, no, that's something I always look for, is the patterns. There's a report that YouTube gives us to show when our viewers are active. That's another one that I feel like is a pretty misunderstood report. I guess I would say that from YouTube, and people are like, oh, I got to change my time. And so what I normally do when I do an audit, I've been doing this for years, is looking at real time every day when you don't post a video, and when you post a video, when's the natural progression of increase. And that's something I teach my students on that as well, is like, look for that natural progression of increase, because that's when momentum starts. And I like to kind of liken it to surfing. You're either going to catch that wave and ride it, or you're going to have that wave just go over the top of you and you're going to miss it, and it's not going to take you very far. And so when you have it, you want to ride that wave as long as you possibly can. And so the earlier that you catch that wave, will give you the ability. Yeah, you're paddling and paddling and paddling, but as soon as it hits, then you can just move on through if it's a good video, throughout the area. I normally look at that, and then I look at the parameter of where. So like, where are my views coming from? Which you already identified that. You already identified that the views are coming from Europe and also, United States. I would look at the percentage of Europe. And I don't want to discount Europe. I love Europe a lot. But if it's only like 6% of the views that are coming from Europe and the rest are in the United States and Canada, I would focus in on New York, because New York generally is the second or third most viewed state in the United States, and that's on East Coast time. And so you might go back an hour or two, so you get a little bit of the UK and the East Coast. But also, it's not too bad if you're doing East Coast time on that, and then you can ride the wave around the Earth and hit it if you do it right on the back end of Europe. But you'd have to look at it, and I would look at where the traffic is and how specifically. Now, if it's heavy UK, heavy Europe, and it's almost equal to, it's like maybe your second, then I would focus more in on Europe for that release from there. So we got a super chat. Sorry I'm late, Daniel. Yeah, give us $100 every time you're late, Daniel. Daniel, there's a thing called replays. I know you want to DM for notes, but there's a thing called replays. But yeah, let's go ahead and go from there. Let's see, get a couple more questions, and we're gonna pull someone on live. This is what I love about these live streams. Okay, here's one. So he says, I do human experiments, but however, recently I made a few Pokemon videos, which Pokemon right now has been taking off over the last year or so. They're performing nicely. Now I'm worried that I can't pivot Pokemon audience back to my regular content. Any advice? Okay, so this is something that I'll tackle, because this is a question. You get some great audience coming in off of an item, whatever is Pokemon. Now, is it the unboxing or just kind of seeing the Pokemon? Is it trading or whatever that Pokemon content is? What I like to look at it is take out Pokemon out of your content. What is your content? Like what's the value proposition? And that's what I look at, because that right there is a format that people want. And whether it's a surprise and delight, which is, oh, I found this Pokemon card in this pack or whatever, then it's a surprise and delight. They're waiting to see that surprise and delight. So it's on brand. And then two, maybe the next thing to do is like, what is something blended between the Pokemon surprise and delight type of content and your other content you're doing? What's another bucket that you could do that would have another surprise and delight component to it that would be similar to what you want to do or what you've done, and then also Pokemon. So you're like trying to find the middle of the road. And what I do with that is like I always experiment, Michael. I like to test things and see if it hits or not. And if it doesn't, then that's okay. We just learned something that you shouldn't do, or it didn't hit like you thought it could. And then you might need to gravitate a little bit more, just experiment with something else. But what I don't want to do is do the extreme of go all in on this or all in on that. What I want to do is just be testing things along the way. Maybe it's every fourth video or every fifth video. You're doing a test along the way. Have you had something, I know it's not Pokemon related, but have you had something similar to that where you had buckets that work and yet one takes off and then you're like, oh, these other ones, I want to get back to doing this. I think you said that earlier. on the calls, like, hey, you're in the weight loss space, but you want to be more holistic. But have you found that that you've experimented with things and they worked, and it might not got the views that you were getting on something else, but is there anything that you could give Michael on this?
I mean, yeah, we've certainly experimented, and sometimes if it seems to get some traction, then you can try another one, and if not, you can let it rest for a little bit longer. And sometimes those things come back later also. Like we have a couple of huge buckets that sort of are bread and butter, and then we're always trying to feed the other ones a little bit, and sometimes they're not ready, and then we'll come back to them.
Yeah, love it. So always experiment, always try. Okay, Venture Times question: how do you get exposure for a new channel? What would YouTube suggest, since it doesn't have a lot of views? Is it just search that gets it noticed? You want to take that one? What would you do if you were starting a new channel? How would you get the exposure that you're looking for?
No meatballs.
Well, Pam says, don't do meatballs.
Well, do meatballs.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, I think before you have any views, it's probably going to be a good bit of search. But then you want to understand the other principles, so that once you do get some search views, that YouTube has some consistent data to go off and continue recommending you.
Yeah. Yeah. I've for those that don't know, I start 2 new channels every year. And I'll confess something I've never confessed on a live stream before. This is actually pretty interesting. I never thought I'd be confessing it, but I build up those channels and then I sell them. That's what we've done for years. Is I'll build them up, get them up to a certain point, and then sell it. And it's been very lucrative. There's companies that do that, and so I kind of worked on that nature of doing it. So we're always experimenting with new things, and so every year we start two new channels, and then we partner with 2 new channels. So every quarter we're working with a brand new channel as a company. And so when I go 100% in to a new channel, I'm like, okay. There's the freshness factor that you get of doing a new YouTube channel. So when you release content, YouTube's going to test it a little bit more. So if the content's really good, then YouTube's going to see that response and then kind of go through that. But it's not going to be just immediately you might get that for a channel or 2, but it won't immediately be massive growth. This latest channel that we did back in January, it has well over, a couple 100,000 subscribers so far. We started back in January 13th, and the first video was 100% search. I knew that the search term would respond well with the keyword that we had and the keyword sequence that we had for the title, and the thumbnail would respond really well with that. And it did. And when you release a video, YouTube actually gives you higher ranking right out of the gate, just for a small little moment, to be able to see, is this a good video that people want to respond to or not? And that might get you a few views. And then based off of what those views do, then you're able to go from there. And so we did that. We actually released a video, but that video, I don't like search. Like, search is good for a tool of getting people into the community, into consuming content. But what I asked is, the question is, okay, if the majority of people watch this video through search, what's a video that I can make that would respond really well to them at the end of the video? So if I made that the end screen element, if I made it a card, if I put it in the description, maybe a pinned comment or whatever, what would be that video to create? And then I created that video and released that. And so, out of the gate, we released a video, and within 2 days later, we released the next video. And I knew that video would actually show up at browse features. So like, anyone that watched the video, we had about 1,200 views at that time, which was a lot for a brand new channel. But I already knew it had a high search volume. But I knew that of the 1,200, we had about 71% of the people that started the video finished it, which was a really high thing. But we know what we're doing. when it comes to content. And so it wasn't surprising that they were getting to the end. And I knew that 71% of those people would actually see the new video that was being released on browse feature. So that'd be homepage or subscription. I think subscription, we had just about 100 subscribers out of that 1,000. So about 10% of the people that watched it subscribed. And that video did pretty good. It didn't do 1,000 the first day, or the first couple days, like the first initial video. It only did about a third of that. But that was good. And then we released another video. I thought, okay, what would be another video that that first initial people would like? And on the third video, it took off. Like we started to see some movement. It wasn't until about 8 videos in that the channel just went bananas. And what happened was we had enough coming in. Our traffic was search is number 1, and then we had browse features number 2, and then a suggestion was number 3 when we started the channel. Search is not even in the top 5 and of the traffic that the channel has. And then you go back to that first original video that was search, it's not even in the top 5 of that. YouTube knows who our audience is and now is serving it out in so many different ways. And so for me, that's what I would do with the new channel, is think about who's going to be watching the content, where they'd be coming. If I would focus in on search. Now, I don't do search all the time. Sometime it might be collaborating with other YouTubers that will push it, or that have a similar audience that I'm looking for, or I might do some other strategies that I teach, my students in there as well. So, okay, let's do the next one. When using buckets, do you distribute the videos? Is it like bucket 1, release X amount of videos, and then go to other release videos from buckets to see how they respond? Do you want to talk about that, or do you want me to do it, Dr. Sten?
Oh, I can get it started and maybe ask you a question on that also. So the whole idea of YouTube can only present or emphasize one video at a time, like make one video special. So you don't want the videos to compete with each other, and therefore you space out the buckets so that you rotate them, and you want to have a certain amount of time between them to kind of let them breathe, because otherwise they tend to step on each other.
Could you give a little bit more clarification what it means, the time to breathe, just a little bit more?
Yeah, so typically YouTube is gathering information and gathering data. So you want about 3 weeks or so, from what I understand, 3 to 4 weeks between the times that you repost the same bucket.
So I look at buckets as how much content am I releasing and how many buckets do I have? And I make content off of that. I make decisions off of that. I think the big thing is, more than anything else, is that that if you release something back to back, you can see success. So if you had a video that's working really well in a bucket and you released another one, let's just say 4 days later, and it was similar topic, similar bucket, it could perform. But if you ever do anything back to back to back, YouTube's now going to say, and you're not going to see what you needed to. Because I'll tell you what, I've tested it, I've tried it for years, and I do believe that you, like what Dr. Sten was saying, you need breathing room between your content, and realize that a lot of the people that would respond really well to that first video didn't have a chance to see it yet. And I think that's the biggest mistake that a lot of people have, is that, it went out to everyone. Well, no, it didn't have total saturation of your market size. And so when you saturate it and you put out another video, now YouTube has to choose, which one do I show? And maybe, is it 1 out of 2 videos, or is it all 3? That's the craziness of that, for sure.
So I had a question for you, if I may.
Well, no, you can't do that. It's not like we're on an interview or anything. No, go ahead. Regarding
buckets, so we have some bread and butter buckets, and we don't want to exhaust them and wear them out, so to speak. I feel I can only make so much in each. So we're trying to rotate, and we post once a week, and we have like, we know we need at least 21 days. But is it a really bad thing to go to 4 or 5 or 6 weeks if we want to add additional buckets?
It like this. I think this is something that we all need to look. Your content strategy always evolves, and I think you can test it and see how it rolls. And you knew I was going to say that anyway.
Yeah.
But it's like, let's do a test, and you know how to actually analyze if the test works or not properly, because you know you've gone through extensive advanced training on it. But I think that the key to it is there's a rhythm and a pattern to a content strategy. And when you find your rhythm, you don't have to change. And this rhythm can last a very long time. But one of the elements you have to do in your content strategy is always exploring new content. And if you don't do that, you're going to stagnate, plateau, and die. And you've seen that, I think, holistically over all of YouTube, and then too specifically on your own channel. It's just like, hey, if we keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again, the same buckets, it just disconnects. And I think too, YouTube's like, we can already show a video that you made 10 videos on this specific topic. YouTube's gonna promote that as well. So I like to try to find the rhythm, and then a part of that rhythm is have a room for experimentation, and then do the analysis on it. And so I don't like to put a time on it, because I know there's content that that performs really, really, really well. And some people might put 2 or 3 pieces of content out a day. And so I don't want to say, oh, it's 2 weeks. It's just like how many videos between that gives enough space. But I think general rule of thumb, if you're releasing daily or several times a week, you need to have a good cycle, at least a week or 2 of a full cycle before I would even be comfortable going back to back. And then 2, on new content, I just want to make sure that I'm consistently doing what works, and then bringing that variable in to see if it can work as well. And that's something that I do, religiously on that. Any last thoughts on that one?
No, that's good. That was helpful.
Okay, so check everyone that did a tweet on that's kind of put it out there. I've selected a couple of you to jump on. I think one of you, and we'll do another one in a second. But check your DMs on Twitter. There's a link that you can pop on and ask your questions, and we're going to just kind of jump from there. And if you want to jump on for some Q&A, we're only going to do a few of these, like maybe 3 or 4 that we're bringing people on live. But it's something that in there. Okay, I got to show you this. This is like one of the best thumbnails ever in the history of all mankind. You want to take a look? Check this out. They did the cartoonist. It's like, hey, okay. You grabbed my attention. I'm literally going to invite you to jump on if you guys want to jump on and chat. So that's actually pretty funny. So let me DM him too, because that's actually pretty funny. That grabbed my attention. Did that grab your attention?
Yeah.
That's so good. Okay, sweet. Okay. So let's pull in one other question. Looks like one of the people jumped on. Let's do 2 questions real quick from Super Chat, and then we'll just pull in one of our viewers that's now going to come on and have a conversation. Okay, here we go. What's the point of baselines if YouTube always finds the right viewer? Well, why do you need to know your baselines here? First off, Dr. Sten, what is a baseline? And then 2, why is it important to track that?
So you have a baseline for click-through, you have a baseline for view duration, you have a baseline for impressions and number of views and everything. So you plot it, you track it over time so that you know what's normal, and then you know if what you're putting out is doing well or doing poorly. And if it's doing poorly, you need to do something different.
So it gives you the ability. Sorry, my earpiece was coming out. but it gives you the ability to know what's happening, if it's performing, underperforming, or overperforming. It gives you the ability. Oh my gosh. For those that want to see my headset, this is what it looks like, so I can hear and not have. I don't know how it kicked out.
But then again, you don't get hung up on any one of those variables, because sometimes you will have a lower click-through or a shorter view duration, but the video for some reason still does well. So then YouTube wants something else in it.
Well, and that's where I like too, is like I like to take a step back and say, oh, this is acting similar based off of this other video that popped, 7 days or 21 days or 120 days. So I'm not going to freak out. Or, oh, this is like a way underperforming click-through rate based on the impressions. I need to change something. Generally, it's the thumbnail. And it's just, those are the decisions. So yes, YouTube always finds the viewer, but I want you to understand the Silicon Tech. YouTube will find the right viewer for it, but if it doesn't respond well if it's underperforming, but the video is really good, that, hey, the click-through rate's way underperforming because it's below the baseline. YouTube's never going to show it to that viewer because they're never going to click on it. So you gotta change something. And that's that quick analyzation and adjusting on that. So love that.
We had one video where it was called "What Happens If You Never Exercise," and it was dying very quickly. And typically you want to change thumbnails as often as you like, but you don't want to mess with the title necessarily. But on that one, all I did was I inserted the word "to your brain" to just make it more interesting. So what happens to your brain if you never exercise? And the click-through rate doubled in the next hour. And it went from dying very quickly to doing better in its 5th hour than its 1st hour.
So that right there is the reasons why we need to understand baselines, is because you know how to course correct. If something's underperforming, you'll know it's underperforming based off of that. And you're not just waiting, oh, wait a minute, I don't get the views. Why isn't the views coming in? YouTube hates me. Okay, Rod Squad, I sold you some dough for 10 book giveaway. I promised last time. Thank you, Rod Squad. For those that have it, our team is sending out those books generously because of all the people that super chatted the books to get out to people. They found value in that. Okay, so should we bring on our live guests? I mean, I've been waiting the whole live stream. This is my favorite part of the live stream, is where we bring viewers like you on to the live stream to ask questions. Should we do it?
Sure.
All right, here we go. Yo, what's going on? You're kind of cut off. You might have to adjust.
Hey,
how's it going,
sorry.
man?
I was good. I was looking at my my Premiere Pro editing screen, because that's what you're supposed to do on the weekend, right?
That's what you always have to do. Exactly.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, gentlemen.
Get that editing screen. So why don't you introduce yourself, your channel, and I love your shirt, by the way.
Thank you.
You can ever imagine. You'll figure it out later.
No, you got to geek out. Yeah. I know you like everything about space, so it's great.
I do.
Yeah, but my name's Paul. I've been a chef for about 15 years. Most of my adult life and career, and during the pandemic, I started my own YouTube channel where I reacted to anime and things like that, the more chef influenced anime. So that was a lot of fun. After losing my job during the closures, I went all in with YouTube, mostly out of necessity. So those things kind of happen, like, where am I going to find a job right now? Luckily, at that point, I had built up enough of an audience to pay for bills, sold my car, sold everything I could to make ends meet, so that way I could go month to month and make this happen. I bought an electric skateboard to get around, kind of thing, and just make do. But I now do a lot of anime influenced and gaming influenced food items, so cooking and things like that. And my goal overall with YouTube is to try to break the barrier of the cooking stigma. I've been cooking my entire life professionally, and the stigma is you have to be this hardened person to really be in a kitchen or want to cook professionally, or even at a higher level. And my goal, especially with growing up with the anime community, I do 9 conventions a year and cosplay and everything. I want to break that stigma for that audience especially. So that's kind of what I try to do.
Okay, so we got to get this out in the open. What's the best anime of all time?
Oh, why you gotta? So my top 10 right now is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it's one of my absolute favorites. It
Yeah.
probably has one of the best storylines I've ever
My
seen.
my
And
son is obsessed with that. I'm like, what?
yeah,
Why? And he's like,
it's
Dad, anime. I'm like, okay, I get it.
yeah.
I get it. You love it. But I do want to make this kind of assessment though. There's a lot of people, they look at how does food and anime combine?
Mhm.
Like, how does that even work? And they're like, that doesn't work. Like, why are you doing that? I'm here that they don't understand people when they say comments like that, and it's like when you look at an audience from there, there's several interests, and there's actually type of crossovers. I actually mentioned in my book very specifically of how you bring it more mainstream and you kind of segment that in on the niche. But how did okay, we get your background on anime and you get your background, but why did you merge the two though? Like,
So yeah, that's a fun question. The biggest reason for me is because that's the medium I consume the most. And I don't watch regular TV. I don't watch like the I guess like American style shows or anything like that. I grew up watching anime. And a lot of the time you'll come across an anime that just has something that's so beautifully animated, even with food, where sometimes the food scene looks better than it does in real life, or than the rest of the show. And for me, being able to bridge the gap was like, okay, these things stand out and make these characters who they are, what they eat
yep.
every day. Things like they may enjoy a certain
Can we
dish.
stop right there just
Yeah.
one quick second? And I want to emphasize what you just said. Is when we look at culture and people, and even content. So content of anime, if you've ever studied the content of anime, there's always a segment of progression of how an episode comes out and the way that it's going to be. And you're saying that there's actually a food scene that happens in most anime.
Mm-hmm. And one of the perfect examples of that, I was rewatching one of my favorites of all time, and it wasn't Full Metal Alchemist. It was actually called Haikyuu, which is a volleyball anime. And I played sports throughout my high school career, mainly lacrosse. And there was a scene at the end where they had lost in a tournament, and they all still sat down, went to a restaurant after the tournament and ate their meals in silence, and like you could see them crying because they didn't want to lose and all this other stuff. I've had that happen to me in real life. Like I felt that a lot, like where we lost in semifinals for one championship, and I get to see it in an anime, and like I should make this entire feast and then share those feelings with everyone in my audience if I can, because there are people who will kind of get that feeling as well. But those same people may not watch regular TV shows or anything like that. They may only consume anime or Japanese related content.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. Okay, so let's kind of deep dive into your questions. You have two people that have been doing YouTube for a period of time, and we don't have all the answers. We don't, but we do have a lot of experience. So what, going all in, and you said two things that are music, to me, which is you're all in. You sold everything. You basically you went down because you're like using the money to go all in on this. So your drive's there. You have two experienced people. What do you want to ask?
Yeah, I pivoted hard on my channel. Very much so. I started off doing the reaction style content and then started trickling in food content. And I saw during the pandemic, everything dipped, but I slowly started to mostly go into just cooking content that's heavily anime and gaming focused from whatever medium. The reason why I did that is because I wanted to send out a bigger message than just a chef talking about anime. I wanted to eventually get people to break that barrier and start cooking in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
My issue now is YouTube primarily looking at my channel as two different audiences. And that's one of the hardest things that I've been kind of looking at, because I do have about 90 videos that are still reaction based over a food anime. And so when I look at impressions, when I look at the reach of those videos, they're not as high as my cooking content. I've asked polls to my audience, hey, how did you find me? Is it through reactions? Is it through cooking? And luckily, most of it is through cooking. So for me, because of my growth and because of dips and numbers here and there, I felt stagnant for the past maybe 6 months or so. And I know 6 months in YouTube time can be a lot or it can be nothing for data. So for me, how crucial is it that I potentially move that content to a different channel, or get rid of it entirely? That's been a question on my mind for the past year. I switched from the reaction stuff to full-time cooking just about a year ago. So, or maybe a little bit longer, about 18 months ago. And being able to do that has been a lot more fulfilling, but it's also been a much more stagnant growth option, I guess.
Right. Dr. Sten, do you want to take this one? Start out?
No, I'll let you do that. Other than, I think it's awesome that you're doing cooking, because my channel is about health, and I'm telling people you got to start cooking at home if you want food that's good for you.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, but I'll let Daryl take it from there.
Yeah, I think when it comes back down to is let's look at the audience, right? So let's just kind of break down the demographic. Okay, so give me the age, and I don't necessarily want you to regurgitate the age that YouTube's saying, but tell me what you think the age is based off of who's responding to your content.
Yeah, totally. I do look at that a lot, but honestly, because of how popular anime has become in the past 5, maybe even 3 or 4 years, it's become much more mainstream. My audience definitely has a bigger demographic that's under 18 now, and up to about 40 years old, because you're talking about people my age who have grown up with it, right? So I turned 35 this year. I started watching like Pokemon, and that's like that demographic is also watching my content, but it's a much younger audience as well. So
okay,
it's
but let's look at it now. That's the general look, but who's the ones that are replying and commenting because they're like super engaged with it? Like who are them?
So that audience, as far as age goes, I want to say most of them are around the 25-year-old mark. And that's because I get a lot of comments of, oh, I was able to make this after work. Oh, I was able to, make this with my kids. Oh, I was able to do this, after or during the weekend. And so I'm assuming that they either have college kids, a work life of some kind. I do get, some of the younger responses as well, but primarily it's that age group.
Well, let me break it down, because believe it or not, I was looking at your channel the other day for a couple reasons, but what I see is you're 16 to 20, about 25, 26, somewhere around there. So they're, junior, senior in high school, or transitioning where they're going out of the house to college or work in that situation. And let's look at them specifically. So that age group. There's channels that are absolutely exploding on YouTube, teaching that age group between 16 to 25 of how to do life things. So cooking would be one of those things, right? Like, how do you actually make a meal? And that's really responding really well. And then two, kind of your I don't even want to use this word, but your crack cocaine to get them there is like something that you're really passionate about, which is anime, right? So you're just kind of blending both worlds together from that. So when you look at that, there's so many different things. So I look at right now of a life event of how many of those people are now leaving for the first time to college. Okay, I'll bet you right now, if I say on this call right now, and we'll look in chat and I'll put it up. Okay, right here. Did your son or daughter leave high school right now and go to college that loves anime? Put it in the comments right now. Because like that right there. And then two, do they know how to cook? That's another thing. Or is that something that they're passionate about? You can kind of look from there, because now we have to understand the psychographics of what's going on. So we understand the demographics, right? The demographics are the easiest things ever to do. The psychographics is not that much. It's like what's going on in their day-to-day life, so you know how to bring in content of value. Because if you don't understand what's going on, then it's really difficult to bring value. So I would assume that they're either in high school or just moving out or just getting started in work and so on. And so you have that demographic that's actually consuming some of your content. Now, the great news about it is that demographic consumes a lot of content. So they don't watch mainstream television. They're more, this is how I consume stuff, is in the anime world. They tend to watch it not on the big screen, but like the small screen.
Right.
And so you have to keep that in mind. They're on the go. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they're moving into that. So they're now worried about making. Here's one that just did it. Here's David Hunter, and we'll get a whole bunch as they're coming in because we're a little delayed on this, but it's just like you're going to get people that are so obsessed with both, and then we just need to understand what's going on in their day. And you mentioned one thing is like, oh, I do this when I get home in the evenings or in the afternoons or what have you. I want to know even further what's going on, because that's the only way that I have a good understanding now. Believe it or not, I gave you a test coming on, and I want to let you know that test out of the gate was I could tell the type of content that you're creating based on what you consume. And what was my first question that I asked you specifically?
Oh man, it was basically who your target audience is.
No, I asked you what your favorite anime was.
Oh, my favorite anime. Oh yeah, that's true. Full Metal Alchemist.
I did.
Yeah,
I did. Do you know the favorite anime of your viewers?
a lot of them Food Wars, because that's what we started off with. Yeah.
Okay. So, but that's an assumption that you're making, right?
That is
and
true. Yes.
We like to make a hypothesis. We like to make an assumption, but what we want to do is now test it. So what's a way that you could test your assumption to know what their favorite anime is?
Oh, I could always just I like doing the polls. I like asking my audience that directly and just give them one answer that I think it is, and then a couple of other ones.
And how would you do polls? Would you just do it in the community tab?
I do enjoy using the community tab quite a bit. Response is usually really good, but also I ask in the comments as well, or let me know what your favorite is. That kind of thing provides a lot of engagement. Also in our Discord, we have separate Discord channels for all of that. But for me, I like looking at the polls. It's easier to see on paper. And that's actually a great question, especially since there's so much good anime that's come out the past year.
Well, but I too want to explain a couple things here, and this is really important. But you just told me through a poll, but like, how can you do that through content?
Right.
Because if it's all about content, then that some people are going to be super passionate about some anime. And I can honestly say, if I say certain titles of anime, my kid's eyes just lights up, and he will just nonstop talk about it. Okay. It was funny. This last year, we lived next door to Mr. Beast. Like he actually bought us a house right next door to him. And so my family and I, during the pandemic, were just living right there. And, so we could just communicate. So they were just like that. And they were just watching anime the whole time because they like the same anime. Yeah. He's like, dude, come over, watch anime. Like, who wouldn't want to go watch anime with Mr. Beast? But he's obsessed with it. But my point is, like, you got to understand where the light bulb's going to kick on with him. The eyes are going to just glisten, and they'll just talk nonstop about the thing. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think you know what that is.
No, I don't.
think that you have an assumption. But now, how do you test it through content? Because this right here is the advanced strategy. This has nothing to do with title selection, thumbnail selection, or content itself. It has everything to do with people. And that's why it's the advanced thing. But how could you test it through content to poll people?
Oh, to be honest, I very much enjoy trying to incorporate things within and without YouTube. And just off the top of my head, I would basically create the 4 easiest anime recipes I've ever made. Choose one from Food Wars, one from Jujutsu Kaisen, which was anime of the year last year. Maybe like Attack on Titan is huge, that kind of thing. And then basically ask in the comments, like, let me know which one is your favorite recipe. And granted, it's not targeting the anime directly. It could be about the recipe itself, but a lot of people defend their favorite anime too.
They 100% will defend it over food 100% of the time. So, this is where Dr. Sten can actually talk into that, because he does a lot of content similarly, right? Of top things that they need to know or about this. And you might think, oh, it has nothing to do with me, but it has everything to do with me, because human patterns of presentations there. You want to take a second when you do listicle type of stuff, and how that Dr. Sten, of how that's able to give you a little bit more information about your viewer?
Well, one thing that I do is I look a lot at comments. I read a lot of comments, and as you start responding to comments, you get more more comments and questions. So that's how I, more than anything, we do polls as well, but that's how I have gotten a sense for what my audience is looking for. And as an example, we've got some buckets right now that we title them "Your Doctor is Wrong About Blank." And we did that basically because the most emotion we got from in responses was how upset people are when they realize that there's one thing that's true and there's another thing that they're hearing from the doctors. Those were the most emotional answers that we got. So then we did a title like that, and it just went through the roof.
But he's a holistic doctor, so it's that controversy of holistic doctor versus medical doctor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this like defending a viewpoint, and that really gets them riled up.
Okay, so like the thing for me is I always like to look at what works. So listicles work. You both just mentioned that, right? Also, Dr. Sten actually talked about doing something that's polarizing because your doctor's wrong because fill in the blank, right? So there's also another thing that works really well. It's a proven format on YouTube, which is versus, you know, and that is by far the best way to survey something because now you're pitting two anime against each other and you're doing two things, but you're doing it in content. But it's like, okay, what would win? And I look at it from a little bit different type of content, and you'll experience this when you work closer with me. But it's like I want to know what that format is, and what if you got like the anime fan of each one of them. Let's say you get like 3 or 4 of them, and you do a taste test afterwards, but it's a blindfold taste test. Think about this for a second, okay? Go with me on this. But you create it, and you're talking about the anime and all that other stuff, but then they have to taste, and then maybe the taste test wins, and then that's how you see the variable of who wins. But you're going to have defenders of the anime through the roof going through those comments, you know? And so, you know, when you look at it, don't look at it as this is what we have to do, is doing Discord and stuff. That's easy. That's the easy way to do it. The better way to do it is test through content, because you already know if you're not an anime fan enough to know what triggers people in it, then you're not a big enough fan.
No,
like,
totally.
I can guarantee you, I could rile up any anime fan, and I could get them to either want to punch me in the face or go cry in a corner.
Yeah, all you have to say is that Superman would beat Goku. That's it. That's it. And then it's like an 8-hour argument.
It's like literally, come on now. You know what I'm saying? But that's the type of things that actually happen. Okay. And that's the type of things that we need to understand. And so what are those trigger points? Because when you bring those trigger points in, you 100% will get the click.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And then 2, it gives you data and information that you can understand more of the audience of what they care about. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I want everybody to understand this. It doesn't matter the type of content that they consume in the sense of YouTube, but it does matter of what's actually in the content. And what I mean by that is when you do something that they're like, I really like this guy because he's speaking to me, that right there, whether it's through food or anime, whatever it is just like, okay, we're off the charts. Now, I could tell you big mistakes that I would do if it was me, is you're going after a lot of great food that's just amazingly prepared and all this other stuff. But there's a factor that you might be forgetting, is a lot of these people don't have enough time or patience to endure cooking something. So there might be an opportunity to do this like in 5 minutes or less. You know, you can get this type of food, or having this prepared as your meal when you go to work or school or whatever. You know, I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying explore that to see if it's actually an option that you can test, because I can tell you at the end of the day, people don't have time in their day-to-day to designate enough to go in the kitchen to cook. Think about this for a second, but they have time to watch anime. They do. Every second, right? But it's like there's like, where do they put their time and priority? I can guarantee you 99% of them would rather watch anime than to go cook in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And so I want you to think about that. And I want you to process a little bit of that, because that is the psychographics of what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
But they do like the food component. Like we had a couple comments on there. They were saying about their daughters, and like I'd have to do it. But it was like about, that they like the cooking portion, but they like the food portion of it. They watch foodie videos, but they're not people that cook, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And just kind of listening to that, I in my head, I automatically think of like a death battle style video or epic rap battles of history.
100%. That is a proven format that has worked on YouTube over and over again. But it's like, okay, go out there and look at that, and then it's not you deciding, but it's the community that's deciding, right? And I would look at that, and that itself is like, hey, don't just make the idea tomorrow and go at it. Go do your research. Like go in and see what are the type of formats that's there, and then how you can adopt it, and then start really looking at, hey, could this be our next thing? And you might have found in your new bucket that it lets you test to see how passionate people are on that. And then you can actually create a replicatable content strategy on it, where if you have the death matches that goes head to head, but like the winner that could go down to the next one, or you could, juxtapose some content that that would respond really well against each other, if that makes sense.
Okay. No, absolutely. And just thinking back at my own content and every video I've made, one of my most successful videos was basically calling out an anime character who won during a tournament arc or whatever it was, and I said he shouldn't have. And it definitely triggered a lot of people, as seen in the comments. So that's definitely something I'd love to explore.
Well, and I think too, it's not necessarily getting them to trigger, but naturally having an opinion, or curating other people's opinion that they would do it. Because I can guarantee you, they're not going to just give you a one answer, you're an idiot. They're going to give you an essay of how wrong you are and how right they are, on it. And that's what you want. But
that's the best part.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just like Life with Marin said, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's so many things that's there. I'm excited because I hear that I'll be working with you soon.
I'm so stoked. I watched every video yesterday that was like released to us, including the onboarding call for a different group. So I was like super stoked for it.
You're like, hey, yeah. But no, I'm excited for that. And that's why I was doing some research on your stuff. Like all the students that come in, I like to know what they're doing. And I was actually pleasantly surprised. I mean, I've seen you comment and stuff before, but it wasn't until I started to watch some of your content, I'm like, oh, you're actually pretty good. I was actually surprised. I mean, I was actually pleasantly surprised.
Thank you.
But the question is like, can you improve? Are you willing to improve? You said two things on the call that just gets me to know that you'll be the ideal student. You're like, you're all in, and you're consuming like no other. But I just gave you stuff that probably would be in your best interest to do now before you start Channel Jumpstart here next week. To do is just go look at that genre, understand every video that performs really well, where it's pitted against each other, because that's where you need to put your focus. So.
Absolutely. I love the versus ideas. It's going to be great. And for one last thing, I don't know who needs to hear this, but it was a struggle to get to where I am. It's a lot of hard work, but there's definitely a 5-year goal in mind, and that's to have my own convention. So that's what I'm building everything for. And it's going to be heavily food related with a bunch of people cosplaying. So it's going to be fun.
Let me just tell you this. You're going to like week 1 of Channel Jumpstart.
I'm stoked. Yeah.
Seriously, week 1 is like really defining your finish line. You already have it.
Awesome. So. Yeah. Thank you guys. I really appreciate your time today.
All right, man. And we got one other one, and then we'll I thank you, Dr. Sten, for doing it. And thank you, everyone here. So if you need to bounce, I know that I'm taking a lot of your time. You're good to go. I can bring on a couple of these other people from there, but I do appreciate you jumping on, or you can stay, whatever you'd like to do. So what would you like?
Yeah, I have some things to do, so I really appreciate it.
Okay.
But
well, thank you so much, and I'll just hit a couple more of these people. But do you have any last thoughts for everyone on their journey?
Well, I was thinking here toward the end of the previous question here, that figure out why your audience is there. So in his case, are they there mostly for the gaming? Are they there mostly for the food? Or are they actually cooking any of the stuff, or did they just come there to hang out? And so are they there? So that could be something else he wants to research.
He's gonna have to go in depth on that for sure.
Yeah.
And
yeah, other than that, it's the one thing I've understood is that you have to provide something of value, and it's good if you're passionate about it, because then so many people, they say, oh, I want a YouTube channel, but they don't even know what it's going to be about.
Yeah.
So you need to start with your passion, because you're going to do this for a long time. And in my case, it was sort of a gift, because I just did what I was already passionate about. So, but thank you so much.
And I think that's the key to all of it, is like, hey, what are you passionate about, and what value can you bring people, and understanding the people. So congratulations on that 1.17 million subscribers. I can't wait to see that to be 3 to 4 to 10. I think the sky's the limit, to be honest with you. I think that you're bringing a lot of passion and value to the world that I don't think it's going to stop until you become satisfied. And then that's when it will stop.
Yeah, I don't want to sound big-headed here, but I figure there's 7-8 billion people in the world, and at least half of them need what I have to say.
That's exactly right.
And there's about 1.5 billion English-speaking people in the world, and I need at least 10% of those to subscribe.
Yep, I love it. Think big, plan big, and then take the small steps.
It's really what I'm here for is I want to be the greatest influence, the greatest igniter of that made a difference, that transformed the health of the world. And there's no reason to aim any lower.
That's so true. Like shoot high. We always talk about that specifically in Channel Jumpstart, but and for those that we always set the goals, like where you want to be in 3 years, and you guys have done it. I'm really excited, and I'm excited that you've now adjusted your sights on bigger things and not be satisfied that you hit your mark.
Yeah.
But you're just getting.
They were always there.
Yeah.
I haven't.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to bring up some other people and let you go and do your thing. You probably have some videos to make or whatever.
Yeah.
And thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. So all of it is about analyzing and adjusting. And I'm learning right now sometimes that I need to bring somebody on and then get to the questions. Maybe it's just me. But this next person that's coming up, I think is the best tweet that I've seen that grabbed my attention because it was unique. He did a little cartoon, to me and Dr. Sten, and it looked pretty good. And we have Pete here. How you doing, Pete?
Good. How are you, Daryl?
Doing good. Now I gotta ask, what is that in the background?
I
see big googly eyes and all that other stuff.
I'm out here in my workshop, and that's a machine I use for building printed circuit boards. And I just like the humor of putting googly eyes on the front of it.
Googly eyes make everything better. It makes the world better place for sure. So you actually do your own circuit boards?
Yeah, I build electronics here primarily for amusement parks and theme parks, museums, things like that. Custom electronics stuff, which is not really the target of the channel, but the whole workshop in general is kind of out here is where the channel comes from, and the stuff that I work on.
Okay, so first off, my inner geeks, I got a billion questions I'd love to ask. But the first question is what is your channel about? So
basically, it's following the projects I do work on out here. I work on some stuff that's fairly unusual. Right now, I'm restoring a carnival ride in my backyard. So things like that. It's kind of really directed at the guy in the neighborhood who everybody knows that's the guy you want to go to if you have something that needs to be fixed.
Right.
The type of people who enjoys watching TV shows like How It's Made or Mythbusters, things like that.
Let's define it. What was your channel name? I'm trying to grab to it. What was that?
It's self-named. It's under my name.
Okay. I'm just pulling it up for everyone so we can kind of go from there. Dude, your video quality is pretty good on that, which is good.
Oh.
You must be a tech geek or some sort. Okay. Okay, so let's kind of define like your content. So you say you're kind of going through your projects and then showing them from start to finish. Is that what you're doing, or what's
Yep,
the?
yep. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, one of the things, it kind of basically came out from, people. I'd work on stuff, and people would just look at me kind of strange and say, "Well, how do you do that?" Or "How did you get involved in that?" And you get enough of those questions over the years that just kind of like, well, I'll start videoing this stuff.
Right, right. Well, let's talk about this for a second, because I see things very quickly when it comes to YouTube. And so you're basically saying, I'm going to start documenting my projects of either builds or refurbs or, whatever of carnival rides, right?
Right.
Is that correct?
Correct.
And is it a multi video series that a project gets done? So you're taking individual things and then that's kind of where it's at?
Right. Yeah. Usually these things can take 6 months or a year to play out. So I try to bust them up into subsections, that kind of make sense presented individually.
Okay. So when we break it down, like why are you doing this? Like, why are you uploading videos to YouTube? Like why? Like,
just to share the passion for working on unusual things. And I get a lot of people who say to me things like, I could never do stuff like that. And it's like, well, yeah, you could, if you just start doing it and, assuming you can do it rather than assuming you can't do it. And also the notion that a lot of projects seem to die on the vine because you lose the motivation or a new shiny object comes along. And this is just kind of the motivation to say, no, we're gonna stick to a project and see it to the end here.
Right. Okay, so love it. Let me kind of break it down on a couple questions that I always ask my students. It's like, who's watching this? Like, who would you say are the people that are enjoying this type of content?
So it's actually I kind of know who it is almost to a person, because
all right, let's talk about that.
I've recently had an individual who discovered my channel after, the channel's been up for about 2 years now, and an individual just discovered it, and I could tell from him liking videos and going down through that he was basically binge watching the channel. And when I got to the carnival ride, he basically made the comment that said, "That's it, I want to be your neighbor," because of what he was seeing there. And it's a middle-aged guy who's kind of in the tech field, who, like I said, is the guy in the neighborhood who everybody knows is the guy you take your broken stuff to if you can't fix something. He's got some disposable income. He's at a point in his life where he's comfortable.
Okay. Well, this is and Pete, this is out of love, and like I'm a very direct person, and I don't want this to deflate you at all, but I want to show you an opportunity and something that I see. Okay. So project-based channels work really well, but you got to understand the nature of the project and how it intertwines. And project-based can be about the project 100% of the time, or it could be just a narrative in the bigger picture, which is your life, right? Mm-hmm. And then that interaction from it. And the type of people that you feel like is your avatar, I'm just saying this out of truth. I don't agree with your assessment on it. Okay. I think that there will be some people that like it, that they'll consume it, but it's so narrow of an audience that you're not looking at the bigger picture. And I want to kind of explain this, and I'll give a point to it. So every year, we, like I said, we work with different channels, and sometimes we partner up with it. One of the channels that we partnered up with is a channel that we wanted to kind kind of explore content. And let me like, this might not feel like it's related, but it's 100% related with what I'm saying. Okay. But it comes back down to this. This channel is about recoveries. So it's Matt's off-road recovery.
Right. Okay.
And what he was doing in the beginning is I'm teaching people the tactics and strategies of how to rescue people, on it. I 100% disagreed with him on that, just like I'm disagreeing with you. So it's like, no, this person likes the outdoors. They like, off-roading, but they don't care about that other stuff. It's just more about the outdoors and watching stuff that they're into. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that they need to know the tactics. It's more about the people and what happens when you do it. Now, we call this the nacho moment for him because I use the example of when you're on the go. We got to look at your audience. Well, most of them are blue collar, working from early in the morning because they might be construction, and they have a daily routine, which is that first stop is to stop in a convenience store, grab a coffee and some snacks or breakfast before they go out on the job. And I says, if you show that as an element that connects with someone's humanity of, oh, he's like us, and oh, this is where it's at. And so that's kind of how it all started. But what was interesting was we decided we needed to do a content that could be more predictable. And I want to show you, because this is where you will be able to see what I'm saying in a very specific thing. So we knew it would take, this project would take several months, and all your projects take several months, right? But what you need to do is like hyper localize on a project, which you might have like 10 projects that's going on at once, or you might just have one project. I don't know, because I didn't really see, I didn't really look into your content that much, just a quick view. But let me show you, just pulling up real quick the video itself. Okay. Okay, so this is the video right here. New rescue build reveal. So this channel's never done a build. And what we wanted to do is introduce it as a bucket. And so he always wanted to make a certain type of vehicle, which is a character in the story, right? Every vehicle is. This one right here is what they call the banana. And that's just like a character on a sitcom. Like, it has its quirks and people connect with it, right? It's a Jeep CJ7, whatever. Not CJ7. I don't even know. I'm not even a Jeep guy, so I don't even want to say what it is. But it's a Jeep, right? I think it's an XJ is what it is. So what he did here is he's like, I'm introducing a new vehicle that we're going to build almost from scratch. And this is the reveal. Okay. And so he reveals the new vehicle. And then every third video, you can see right here, we're in the shop. You know what I'm saying? And you can see right here, it's about creating something out of nothing and then seeing the final product as it's coming in. And it has deadlines, and there's natural things that are occurring here. But you can see each one of these. It has everything to do with the project, and you can see the project evolve. So people love to see the transformational things that occur, and some hit, some miss. But for us, all we cared about is our active audience. Did they actually find it interesting? And you can see, oh, it has a new paint job. We're going to do a reveal, right? And you can see all the different things. And you're seeing this actually go over the course of several months, and see, even to this point, hits a major milestone. We're doing something great on this. And so you're seeing the build be complete. And then we come a little bit further down to it, breaks and so on and so forth. But let's get to this one right here. So here's the thumbnail. Corvair is finally finished, and we're taking it out for a test drive, right? And that right there is something. And so what was it? It was like literally 4 months of a project, you know what I'm saying? And you're able to see it go from nothing to completion. And right. So I want to reset your mind is people love tinkering, and they love that for sure. But people love to watch what they're into, right? And people love to see things go from a broken state to a restoration state. There's tons of restoration channels on YouTube. And that's what your channel is, from my perspective, is a restoration channel.
Mm-hmm.
But it's around a specific niche, right? It's around carnival equipment and carnival things. So for me, when I look at your channel, I feel like it doesn't represent it visually. You have to force it with words. And so you're always carnival ride rebuild, right?
Mm-hmm.
Carnival ride rebuild. So you have that's happening there. And I think the thumbnails could be better engaging, where it's about the overall main product or whatever, or project. But this comes back down to you: is, are you working on several projects at once, or is it the same project until it's there? Is every video leading to that? Like, you got to give me more information on that.
Yeah, generally, right now what we're doing is this series on just this particular carnival ride, where we're taking it beginning to end. So it's just going to be, for the time being at least, this one project.
Okay, so that right there is a tough model, and I want to explain why. Because you're going to be doing what you're doing, weekly content, or 3 times a month. What are you doing?
Yeah, it was weekly till I ran into a problem this past week here, or the past 2 weeks.
Okay,
yeah. So it's generally weekly or every other week.
Okay, so what I would like to see is once a month that you're checking in on the project, and so you're getting super hyper focused on a project, and so you're getting down to the part which could be a compilation of like, the video could be, you're doing several things on this, and it's not like this is how you do it. It's more about the process, not the how-to process, but the process of what you got to go through. Oh crap, we got to order this rust, whatever, right, paint test, whatever. Did it work? Didn't it work? And oh, we need to do this. And it's more the background side of it. And then 2, it's about the completion of the project, right? So it's just like, we're one step closer to it. But if you do that every week, I'm not that interested in what you're doing to watch it every week. I am to say, okay, we got this project over here, and here's some other stuff that's shop related, that's interesting, or some things that you're really, really loving and you can't wait to experience. It's around carnival anything. And then I think that too, that also engages with them too, that it just, you're able to see the process of it, and then it just doesn't become a step-to-step guide of how to refurbish something that they'll never refurbish in their whole life.
Right, right.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's, I mean, you said things that I inherently know, but don't know how to get there.
Well, I think it's like, when you inherently know and you don't know how to get there, that's where it comes to jumping on, calls like this, or getting a mentor. Like, I gave you a path, right? So it's like, you have to have a reveal of the project. Okay. So it's like, here's your reveal video, right? And it's great. Like, it's probably one of your better thumbnails. And I can tell you, it's not that great of a thumbnail, but I bought a carnival ride. Like, it doesn't get much better than that. And you're kind of showing it right here. But it would be so much better if you got rid of this and you're pointing at it, and it's either in the background so you can see the full essence and scale of it, that, you're forward, it's in the background. You see the full essence of the ride, or something to make that thumbnail really pop. And that's kind of the reveal of the project. But if you saw what we did with Matt's, like, we had a tarp over it. So there's even more mystery. Like, what is that carnival ride, right? So if you're doing a project once, a quarter, or once half a year, or whatever, I don't care what it is. It's just like, you have to have the reveal process. And then you need to set the stage. Like, okay, we'll be checking in, every other week. We'll show you the progress of where this is going. But then it's more about the journey of creating or restoring that project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
But
yeah, you're talking about doing I mean, basically, in some ways, these videos are all kind of behind the scenes videos, but you're talking about doing behind the scenes of behind the scenes. You're talking about the
100%.
process
I
it
care
takes to
about
get to.
I care about reality and people.
Yeah.
Okay. Not about how to do this and how to do that. It's like, oh my gosh, like when I come on, I had to stop you. I'm like, what in the heck is that machine behind you? And I have a million questions on that, right? And that is because now your machine is a character. Does the machine have a name?
Actually, no, it doesn't.
Okay, see, that right there is something you need to think about. See, that machine's a character in your content. Because anytime you go to the machine, if you have a name, it has googly eyes. How can you not give it a name with googly eyes? You know what I'm saying? So it needs to have and it has its own mannerisms. Like I can guarantee you can tell me 5 things that machine does that just makes you mad, and 5 things that you love about the machine. And so it's a character in your content. You got to treat it like that. I'm telling you, there's some amazing content creators. One of the things that I grew up on was Mr. Rogers. And I know it seems really weird, but Mr. Rogers is a master storyteller in the sense of creating characters out of things. And they actually had a personality and they became alive because of that. And there's no difference between it. And so, that's when someone cares so much about their vehicle that they give a name to it. From there. Now, let me tell you what we did on the project for Matt's Off-Road. We didn't give it a name. We wanted the community to give it a name. And it's a Corvair, but it's like a monster recovery vehicle. But everybody calls it the Morvair. Matt's Off-Road Recovery, Morvair. And so that sticks, and now it's immortalized on the product. And so, or the character itself. And so now you have the banana, the Morvair, and people know now what you're talking about. When I say banana Morvair, you're like, what's a freaking banana Morvair? Well, you're not a part of our community. You're not there, you're not connected. And so it's those little elements that bind us together that the people that come back to watch it, they're like, oh my gosh, that's, your machine that builds circuit boards or whatever. Okay, so this is what I would do moving forward. And this is where everyone on the call, you have to really listen to this, okay? I would do this, and I treat this project as a bucket. And so you'd always be adding to this carnival ride. And I don't even know what is it. It's a kiddie, what is it?
It's a kiddie swing type ride.
Okay, so you have to say swing type ride. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to give it a name of what it is, because it's like kiddie ride restoration, blah blah blah, right? But it needs to be it needs to have so you have swing carnival ride, right? I would just say, hey, here's the kiddie swing carnival ride that we're restoring, or whatever it is, and then I want you to eventually give it a name of what that ride's going to be, and I want you to think of something when you're restoring it that could accentuate that name. Because now it's like a personality, and you're like, hey, people would just throw this away, but yet on this channel we restore things, and we restore everything carnival, right? Okay, so that's stage 1. Stage 2 is why do you have this passion for carnival rides, and what or carnival itself? How did that engage? I want to know more of that personal side of you. You can weave it into your content with this one, but I also want to see other things. It's like, how do you actually find parts? I'm curious. That's a video. How do I actually find the right type of parts? Do you go to salvage yards? Do you have to make your own product? All those types of things. And yes, you might have videos that you show it, and that's the journey of it. But I want you to take a disconnect is, hey, part of my responsibilities is finding the things that most people can't find. And today I'm on a quest to find this product. And that's the video. And why do you need the product? Because it's going to this project that we do every other week, right? You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then 2, it's like sometimes when you can't, like, think about this as content. We can't find the product. Well, what do we do next? Here's another video. If we can't find the product, we make the product, right? And that's what you do. And those are 2 different buckets, right? It's a search and discovery. And then one's a, hey, we already tried that, and now we have to build. Okay. And then you have your project. You now have 3 buckets that lead to content that people care about. You know what I'm saying? Because people, I can guarantee you, want to see you search for things, and the automatic drama that comes into that, you know. And yeah, you might need to change your form a little bit, but I'm telling you, this is a banger idea. Like I don't say this, I don't say this just because you're on the call. I really do believe it. It's just like people are interested in. I can guarantee you, there are people that salvage things, right? That have they don't care about the carnival aspect, but they do like to see the restoration. They salvage and they restore, right? And maybe they do different things, but they come onto you and like, oh my gosh, you know, here's something I can connect with. No, I don't do carnival rides, but I source things or make things to make things cool. His might be the carnival ride, but mine might be, you know, a vehicle or a rocket or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. Yes.
But do you get the dynamic of what we're trying to create here? Like you're and I say this out of all due respect. It's like your eyes are narrowed, and I hopefully have taken off the blinders a little bit, you know, on the type of content here. So
no,
go ahead.
like I said, like I said, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I knew that I needed to expand it and present it in a way that was, you know, less technical and focused down in and more of a wider spread appeal. But just how to get there has always been my issue, because I am so technically minded. I just see it as that.
And it's not bad. Be technically minded, because that's who you're going to connect with, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to be more about you know, getting less technical on the type of stuff. But it's like when you surround yourself by people that are interested in restoration, I know you're going to have conversations that people that aren't interested in restorations are going to have. And you're not going to be the one-off restoration where they can see it from beginning to end in one video. That works really well too. But your projects are, you know, months, you know, sourcing and creating the stuff. So I don't want you to even go down that route. But that doesn't mean you can't go down that route for another type of video too. But let me give you your fourth video, because I give you 3 video bucket ideas that you're doing that leads to the main project. Your fourth one would be just kind of a passion project that would be related, that's non-related to this, that is a quick one-off. And it could be something around the house that you're modding out, something around the like I look at your workspace, and there's a lot of cool things on it. You might need to fix things there. That is content. Okay.
And you're referring to just a one-day type of, like, one video project. Right. Yeah.
Start to finish. This is what we did. You know, I'll give your machine a name, but don't keep this name. But Lucille's acting up, and you know we gotta fix it, because you know we can't find the part, but we have to make it, because they don't do this anymore. Whatever it is, I don't care what the narrative it is. It's just figure out what the narrative is, and then you now have a quest to get things done in a video, and then there's that satisfaction. And so I know I don't even have to ask you this question, but I know that you have one-off projects several times in a month that you can document. You're not 100% focusing on this one thing. I know that you're not. And so that right there, now you have 4 videos in a given month.
Right. Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
I hope the replay of this is available, because I'm going to be replaying it several times, I believe.
100%. And I want everyone to know on these live streams, you know, I'm going to have a guest that comes on. We're going to talk strategy, and then we're going to have viewers like Pete here that can come actually get a little consulting session. You get a little taste of what it means to work with me, whether, you know, in a 1-hour consult or whatever. Now, we didn't really go through the whole process of what I do in a consult, because I really prepare for that. But I know that I give you ideas to how to improve. And I know I gave you ideas to think about it. But think of this, that when you rewatch it, think of it in a way is, what is something that they're passionate about, that they like, and stop thinking about, we're doing this one specific project for this. Yes, it's there. You're going to take a group of projects, put them together, because it's more about, hey, this is what we got done since the last video on your main project, and that's great. Okay.
Thank you so much, Daryl.
All right, Pete. All right. And thank every one of you that's actually here, those that super chat, appreciate it so much. We're going to be doing these about every other week. That's about how much time I have to do that, because I'm working very, very closely on some big projects that take so much time. And then I love what I do when I'm mentoring people. If you're interested in working closer with me, find a link below the description. There is a class that I put on that is a group mentoring for 12 weeks. It's called Channel Jumpstart. It's application only. We only have a few seats left. So if you're interested in working really closely with me, it's expensive. I know I'm expensive, but you can actually submit your application. We're just kind of wrapping that up right now. And if you don't have the book, get the book. It is amazing. If you think that everything that I talk about here today is in the book, yeah, it is, but it's not the only thing I talk about. There's a lot more depth that I can do in written form that you can't get here. And then it's actually positioned in a way of really having you understand the type of content. But thank you all so much for being on this live stream, and we'll see you guys on the next one.